Welcome. I know it's that time when you are about to or are writing exams. So what I want to do today is I want to look at some tips to improve your writing skills in exams. So let's have a look at what we're going to look at in this lesson today. We are going to start with my giving you some tips just to help you. Then we're going to look at how to answer shorter exam questions. We'll move on to how to summarize. And we're going to look at how to answer multiple choice questions. I'm going to just give you again a few tips for that. And finally, I'm going to go through an exercise with you where we look at how to answer a long question or an essay question. Let's begin by first having a look at some of the terminology that we're going to need to use in this lesson ahead. What I want you to do, I'm going to give you 3 minutes in your pairs or groups again to look at these 3 terms. We have the word keywords, we've got scan, and we've got summarize. And when you're discussing each of these terms, what I want you to do is to talk about why do you think they're important while we are looking at how to answer questions in the exam time. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes and we'll chat about it when we get back. Okay, so let's have a look at what you discussed. We have the word keywords. Okay, what are keywords? Keywords are our main words that we look for, particularly when we are wanting to summarize, which we'll talk about now, but also when we're reading a question. So we look, what are the main words that we need to focus on? We've got the word scan. Now, scan is a reading technique where you look very quickly through a text, but try to find something in particular, for instance, a word or, for instance, a keyword. And then finally, summarizing. Summarizing is a question that you are going to have to answer in your English exam paper and maybe some other exams as well. And there again, what you do is you take out the main points and you summarize and make them smaller and write them into your own words. So those are our key terminology. What I want to start with is looking at some tips for answering questions. Now, you may know these, but it's not going to do us any harm to go over them again. One tip, and it's very, very useful, is to use the words in the question to structure the beginning of your answer. So here's an example. Let me show you. The question is, what is the name of the evil character in Isidingo? So now what you do is you take part of that, the words in the question, and you put them into your answer. You use them to begin your answer. And you say, the name of the evil character in Isidingo is. All right, so what that allows you to do, it allows you to already shape and structure your answer. Let me show you an example, one more example. Why, question 2, why is the character considered evil? Okay, and then again, use the words in the question to shape your answer, and you would then say, the character is considered evil because. Okay, so the character is considered evil because. And there you've used your question to structure your answer, which is very useful. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, there are 3 questions we're going to look through, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes to work in your groups to frame your answers by using some of the words in each of these questions. So question 1 is, what are the 2 major themes in Romeo and Juliet? The second question is, why is Romeo and Juliet called a tragedy? And then the third is, how does Shakespeare portray the 3 witches in Macbeth? Okay, so all you're going to do is use the words in the questions. Don't answer the full question. Okay, we're not looking for you to answer the full question. So let's start our 3 minutes. And in your pairs and groups, answer the beginning of question 1, question 2, and question 3. I'll see you in 3 minutes. Okay, let's have a look. So you had your 3 questions and you used them to structure your answers. The first question, what are the 2 major themes in Romeo and Juliet? Your answer, the 2 themes or the 2 major themes in Romeo and Juliet are. Then we go on to our next one. Let me just scroll down there. Question is, why is Romeo and Juliet called a tragedy? And you would answer, Romeo and Juliet is called a tragedy because. And finally, the question 3, how does Shakespeare portray the 3 witches in Macbeth? Shakespeare portrays the 3 witches in Macbeth, and you could probably add here as. Okay, so that's just to help you shape your answers a bit. Another useful technique or another useful tip is to identify keywords in the question and find those same keywords in the text. So let me give you an example. This is in fact a question from a past paper. So the text is here. We've got Maseko, and it begins with our tops. Okay, and then we've got the question, Mr. Sibusiso Maseko teaches music and science. Indicate whether the statement is true or false, and give a reason for your answer. So I'm going to scroll back up there. Now what I want to do is, particularly if you have a long text, I'm going to scan for the words music and science. Okay, so scanning, remember, is you quickly look through the text and you try and find that word. So I look through Maseko is a 44-year-old science teacher. There we go. Already, just by doing that, I've connected the 2. And I have my answer. All right, the statement is true. And then you can give a reason for your answer. Well, here it is. Maseko is a 44-year-old science teacher at Zweli Banzi Secondary School. Okay, so that's just a nice technique to help you speed up how you answer questions. So I'm going to give that to you to do in your groups. I'm going to give you not as much time as our last question because this should be a speedy activity. And again, here we have, first identify the keywords in the question and then scan for them in the text. Okay, so this is a question. Name the institution that gave Mr. Maseko the Stella Clark Teachers Award. And then the text is, recently he received, etc., etc., etc. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute to scan through the question. Okay, what is the key word? What are the important words? And then try and identify them in the actual text. Okay, so you've got 1 minute to do that. Okay, so how did your scanning go? I hope well. Again, this is a tip that you can use not only just in exam, also for if you're studying or you want to read quite quickly. What were the keywords that you found in the question? Name the institution that gave Mr. Maseko the Clark Teachers Award. I think you would there look for the word institution. Okay, and then that would guide you into reading quickly and trying to find the answer in the actual text. And use this particularly in comprehensions as well, because comprehensions you have to work quite quickly through each of the questions. Let's finish off this last section with one more of these scanning activities that I'm going to give to you. All right, the question is, what did earlier scholars believe the meaning of Ishla was? Okay, and then this is the text. All right, so 1 minute, find the keyword in the question, and then scan the text and find it in the text. I'll see you back in 1 minute. Okay, so keyword in the question, ihle. All right, then what you're going to do is you're going to scan and you're looking for that word in the actual text. So quickly, eyes glance over everything and you say, ihle, and again, ihle. And then you can say, okay, so what did earlier scholars believe the meaning of ihle was? And here, discovered actually meant headland. So you would answer using the question, earlier scholars believed the meaning of the word ihle was headlands. Okay, so here we've combined two tips that will work quite nicely for you when you write your exams. All right, so let's go to an ad break and then we'll continue after that. Welcome back from the ad break. Now let's go to looking at answering questions in exams that are a little bit shorter, all right, and answering them efficiently. So one question, this is a language question. It asks us, it gives us the text, and it begins, Leonardo DiCaprio, a famous Hollywood actor, was injured a week ago. He slipped while on the set of his new film, The Blood Diamond, and hurt his knee. He was airlifted to Nelspruit Mediclinic, where x-rays were taken. It turned out to be a minor injury. Okay, now you've got your shorter questions, and you know they're shorter, obviously, one, because of the mark allocation. And you know that according to time, you're going to be wanting to give 1 minute to 1 mark. So the question, why do the words Nelspruit Mediclinic begin with capital letters? And here to answer the question, and again, I use the word efficiently quite a lot, you could say Nelspruit Mediclinic begins with capital letters because, all right? And then you would say it is a proper noun, all right? And then you move on to your next question. 2. The writer has used italics to indicate the title of the film, The Blood Diamond. All right. State one other way in which the title could have been written. Here, you don't have to say the writer used italics, however, the writer could have used. No. All right. You want to have a nice, concise answer. Here, you could just answer, the writer could have used inverted commas to indicate that this is the title of a film. All right. So full answers, full sentences, but short and concise. Let's look at the next example. And this is the one that I want you to do. I want you to look at this question, okay, read the instructions, and then answer the questions. So this is the question. These are the instructions. Edit the following passage using the questions below to guide you. Write only the question number and the correct answer. And the text, this is the text. You can read it on your own, in your pairs or in your groups. And then these are the questions. Okay, question 1. Correct the spelling of one word in line 1. And that's for 1 mark. And then the second is a word in line 2 has been used incorrectly. Rewrite the word correctly. All right, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that because they're just two questions with 2 marks. I'll move it up so you can see the text. And when you're doing that, I also want you to think about the instructions. Okay, make note of the instructions. And I'll chat to you about why you need to do that after you've completed this exercise. So let me give you 2 minutes to do that. Okay, so this was an example of a very challenging task. I see that the instructions in the questions are actually incorrect because they don't line up with the actual lines of the text. But this is okay. All right? If you're a good editor, you would have picked them up anyway. So correct the spelling of one word in line 1. Everything's fine in line 1. However, we have a mistake here in line 2. I wonder who saw that one. Okay, and here received, remember, is spelt received. Okay, that swaps around. And then your second question, all right, a word in line 2 has been used incorrectly. I wonder who picked this one up because it was also in line 3. And here we have, he waved as he went past them. Here we have the incorrect word used. So that was a very challenging one and well done. Now, I want to go on to our next section where we're going to look at summarizing. Now, summarizing, like I said, it's something that you do in tests and not just for English, but it's also something that you can do when you're studying for your exams. So I want to show you the layout of what your exam will look like in the section where you have to do your summary. Okay, now this again is an example from a past paper. So here we have the introductory instructions. Imagine that the following diary entries are from your diary, so that gives you a clue. You are going to be the I. Read what has been written and answer the questions below. Now, my advice to you would be, before reading, go to the questions below so you can see if there are any keywords that will help you in answering them. And have a look at this. Here are the instructions and the information. Write one paragraph, okay, so that's your limit, of no more than 50 words in which you mention 7 things that you like about your school. Okay, so now that's what you're going to be scanning for, things you like about your school. The instructions are very important, particularly for summaries. They want a single paragraph, okay? 1 fact in a sentence is fine, 2 facts is also okay. Count the words, all right? Give the total of the words, the number in a bracket, so they want 50, so try to be as close to 50 as you can. And you will be penalized if you don't write it in a single paragraph, if you don't use full sentences, and if you use more than 50 words. Okay, so you've scanned through that. Now you have an idea of what you need to do. So I'm going to give you, instead of having to do the entire summary, I'm going to give you a little part of the summary to do. So let me take you to that. All right, I'm going to give you 3 minutes for this one. And you can do it in pairs or in groups, however you're sitting, that's fine. And I want you just to identify, we're not going to be writing any sentences or anything that you may be putting down on paper in your exam. Just to identify 3 things, okay, that you, all right, this is from your perspective, it's your diary, that you like about your new school, all right. So you've got 3 minutes to do that, and when we come back, we'll highlight those 3 keywords, I think, for now. Okay, I'll see you back in a moment. All right, so I'm going to speak to you a little bit about how I think I would tackle this question. I know that I need to be scanning for 3 things. I need to be scanning for 3 things that are nice, that I like. So I might just quickly glance my eye over the text, and there I would see, oh, okay, there's friendly, that's something good. Wonderful, that's something good. Cool, that's something good. All right, and as I'm scanning, I might see words like nervous. Cross it out, because they're not asking us to identify things that you don't like. Okay, if you look at this, feeling a bit lost, no, you're not going to include that. So that's a little technique you can use for scanning or for identifying the main points in a summary. So there we have it. Okay, 1, the staff, they are friendly. That's your 1 point. Number 2, there are lots of facilities, many facilities. And then finally, 3, the teachers are cool. Okay, so there you have your answer. I want to finish this section off by just giving you some tips that you can use when you answer multiple choice questions. Okay, because usually they are in some of your comprehensions and obviously in other subjects as well. So you have your multiple choice questions. First, read the question and don't look at the options. You can even cover the options if you want to. So in your head, you see, do I have the answer, number 1? And if you do, then you can check it against the options that they give you. Okay. Then, so you've done that, you've read it, you've checked it, and obviously if you see the correct option, select that. Now, another thing is, if you are not 100% sure, and I think for any multiple choice assessment, you need to read every single option before you make a choice. Okay, so just make sure that there's not a both A and B option for you that you could have chosen. So be sure of that. And I think that's where checking your answers is so important. If you have 2 or 3 minutes at the end of the exam, do not just sit. Go back, look through it, double check, make sure you've answered it correctly. Then another tip you can look at is this. If you are not sure, okay, you've got all the options in front of you. If you're not sure, cross out the ones that you know are absolutely not right. And then you might be left with 1 or 2 from which you need to choose. And that's where we come to our last point. I'll skip to our last point and then come back to the second last point. That's where we come to our last point. Do not select something unless you know that you will be penalized. Some multiple choice questions say, like, if you select the wrong answer, you will be penalized. If that is not the case, then make an educated guess. Okay, because you could strike that one lucky. Then let's go back to the second last point. Look out for keywords like always and never. Okay, because sometimes these can help you either cross out what is definitely wrong, or select something that you know is more likely to be right. So these are some of the guiding tips that you can use when you answer your multiple choice questions. And probably most importantly, and as I've mentioned before, always check. Once you've finished, you've got that time at the end of your exam, go back and check. And you can check through your multiple choice questions quite quickly. All right, in the next section, we're going to look at answering longer questions in exams. But before that, let's go for an ad break. Welcome back. Let's go to our third and final section where I said we're going to look at answering longer or essay questions. 4 tips. 1, and this is for any question, read the question carefully. If it's a longer question, get your highlighter or get your pen and highlight the main words. That will guide you and give you steps which you can follow when you do answer your question. Thirdly, plan. Okay, particularly in the longer essay questions, you are actually required to submit your planning. So use it, use that opportunity. Because when you plan, you are halfway there. And finally, be familiar with the marking rubric. Okay, often teachers do give it to you before you have an assignment. However, in the exam, you might not have access to it. So have a look around. We're gonna look at it now. Have a look around to see if there are any rubrics that perhaps your teachers could show you. So these are the 4 points that I want you to think about. If we look at our next slide, we get to the idea of using planning tools, all right? And using planning tools and submitting these when you submit your exam. What are our planning tools? Well, we have a mind map. Mind maps are my favorite. This is how I see things. I see things very visually. So for me to plan using a mind map, I can break up my ideas and categorize my ideas into, these will be my paragraphs, for instance, and these will be my different sentences or my points that support my paragraph. So for me, mind maps work. Other people, outlines work, which is where you actually just, you could even use bullet points to organize your ideas. But obviously that's something you have to know about yourself. So one of the planning tools, mind map. Let's have a look at some more. We have the other planning tool is a table. Perfect for comparison. If they say discuss the pros and cons of this or the advantages and disadvantages of that, use a table to make notes of your points, and then that will help you to construct a really well-developed essay or shorter question. Then we have our tree diagram, and this will be nice for many different subjects, not just for English. Here you can, it's hierarchical. It's about organizing hierarchical information. So that's also a nice planning tool that you could use. Obviously, again, it depends on the question. We have our flow diagram, okay, which also can be about relationships, okay, of information, one piece of relationship and how it relates to the next, etc., etc. So again, depending on the questions, use these tools to help you organize your ideas before you start to write. Then, if we have a look at this, I said to you what will help you and what will guide you is to have an idea of the marking rubric. Okay, so what is the examiner going to be looking for when you present your work to him or her? Well, first of all, examiners are going to be looking at the content and planning. All right, what are your ideas like? Okay, and how have you planned them? How have you grouped them? It says here, organization of ideas for planning. So that's probably where they're going to be looking at your draft. And then also they want to know, are you aware of the purpose? Why are you writing this? To whom are you writing this? Okay, and the context in which you are writing. So that's what they're going to be looking for. Additionally, they're going to be looking for your language and your style and editing. And that's where you need to do your editing, particularly when you have time left at the end of your exam. So they want to know your tone. Should it be formal or informal? You need to write accordingly. Your register, again, formal, informal. Your style, vocabulary, which words do you choose? Okay, that's the word choice. Or diction. Okay, are you using language conventions correctly? Is your punctuation correct? Is your grammar correct? Is your spelling correct? And that all comes up to 15 marks. Okay, where the first content and planning, that came up to 30 marks. So far you got 45 marks. And then what is the last 5 marks left? That's the structure. Okay, how have you structured your text? Have you got proper paragraphs and have you got full sentences? So have an idea of that when you go in and write your longer essay questions and know this is what my examiner or my teacher is going to be looking for. If we have a look at paper 3, the marking rubric, in a little bit more detail, what we have for each criteria, we have level descriptors. And those give just a little bit more detail as to what is expected of you as a writer. So these give you an idea of what to aim at and what to avoid. So what do we want if we are looking to do well in our content and planning? Okay, so if we're looking at getting full marks, all right, which is not impossible, we want our response to be outstanding, striking. We want our ideas to be intelligent, thought-provoking. We want our content to be coherent, which means it makes sense, it ties together. And this is where you always need to make sure you've got your introduction, you've got your body, and you've got your conclusion. All right, you must structure your work like that. So that's what you'll be doing excellently. And where you will be doing very, very well is also here. And it's pretty much the same principles. They want to see your response, okay? They want to see that your ideas are coherent and convincing. and they want to see the organization of your text. Again, introduction, body, and conclusion. And when you don't have anything, then you're going to be moving down to this set of criteria where the teacher or the examiner would see, well, you actually haven't even responded to the topic. The information you've included is irrelevant and inappropriate, and your wording is unfocused and muddled. All right, so this is kind of where you want to be when answering your questions. So having an idea of what your examiners look for is really, really helpful. And again, if you have a teacher who has access to marking rubrics, ask your teacher and have a look and read through them more carefully. So let's answer a longer essay question. And we're going to start by planning. And I've set out for us to plan in using a mind map, but if there's another way that you want to plan or another planning tool that you want to use, feel free. So this is the question. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of growing up in a large family. So some of you may have experience of this, some may not. So you can share your ideas. I want you to draft the mind map or use another tool. As I said, if you feel more comfortable using another tool, draft the mind map, and this is the layout that I've given you. So your central idea is growing up in large families, and then here you can look at the advantages, and here you can look at the disadvantages, and in these circles, you can give specific examples of what's good and what's bad. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do that. It may be useful if you have a pen and paper, for you to just jot down some notes, and when we come back, I want to share the ideas with you. All right, so I'll see you back in 3 minutes. Okay, so let's share what you discussed. I'm not there, but I am wondering who of you chose to use the mind map, and perhaps some of you may even have chosen to use a table, which would have worked just as well. So if we look at the example, we have the same. We need to discuss the advantages and disadvantages. And I want to look at how you're now going to be using your planning, which you must submit, in structuring a cohesive and coherent answer or essay. So let me share some of my ideas, and then I'll show you how we can use them into adding an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And just very quickly, remember that a body isn't one big chunk of text. The body is broken up into different paragraphs, so that's very important. That's something that your examiner will be looking out for. Okay, so advantages of growing up in a large family. You learn interpersonal skills. Interpersonal skills. Okay. You learn how to share. Okay, and perhaps you could even say there are many helping hands. Okay, hope you can read my writing. Next side, disadvantages. Okay, so what's not so good about growing up in large families? Well, perhaps you wouldn't learn the skills of relating to another person one-to-one. It might be economically difficult, okay, having many mouths to feed. And what else might we say? So we might also say that you might feel disadvantaged, or you may feel left out, okay, if you're one of, let's say, 4 or 5 or 7 or 8 brothers and sisters. So those are the possibilities. I'm sure you have different ideas, which is great. So then these are my ideas. Now I know, okay, now I'm going to structure the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Now, I take this part for my introduction. So I say, depends on how you want to phrase it, but it's going to be, in the introduction, you're going to have your thesis statement, which is a broad introduction for the whole essay. So you'll say, growing up in large families has both advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so that's where you're going. Your body paragraph, I might want to actually just have 4 and choose 2 ideas from the advantages side and 2 ideas from the disadvantages side. I'm worried if I do 3 on the one and 3 on the other, my essay might be getting too long. So let's say I'm going to have my first, I'm going to talk about interpersonal skills, so that'll guide me there. My second, I want to talk about having lots of helping hands. Then I'm going to shift to the disadvantages. So my third paragraph, I want to talk about it not being economically viable or being economically difficult. And the fourth, let me say I want to talk about what it's like to feel left out if you've got loads and loads of brothers and sisters. So that's how I draw all my ideas into the body. And in the conclusion, just remember the conclusion is the same as an introduction. Introduction says to the reader, this is what I am going to write about. And the conclusion says, this is what I have written about. Okay, so in essence, my conclusion would say very similarly, growing up in large families has many advantages, like developing interpersonal skills and having many helping hands, but it also has many disadvantages, like not being able to relate to somebody one-on-one, and it being economically very difficult for the family. Okay, so that's where you take your planning and you put it into your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. Okay, and again, after that, you do need to edit. So that's about how to write a question for a longer. Let me just go down here. That's about how to write a question for a longer an essay, a longer essay question. And I think I just want to quickly wrap up by saying, most importantly is that you study. Second is that you are prepared and you come in and you breathe. And finally, that once you have written, you go back and you check all your answers. So what I want to say to you is good luck, and you're going to do wonderfully. Be relaxed, be prepared, and enjoy.